What's up, fam? It's your girl, Mrs. Tony 2 times, and I'm back with another video. In this episode of the Baltimore Way, it's actually going to be a special report, an update on the Akia Eggleston case. I did a video on this story back in February 2022 when the father of her unborn child, Michael Robertson, was arrested and charged with taking her life. Now, he just recently went to trial this past July, and the trial lasted 13 days. So I wanted to give a brief update on that case. Now, before we get into this video, welcome if you're new here to our channel. Please feel free to subscribe. Make sure you tap that notification bell so you never miss an upload. And shout out to all of our day one subscribers and all of our new subscribers. Thank you so much for your support. And please don't forget to share this video with everyone you know. Make sure you watch until the end so you hear the full story. All right, let's go ahead and jump right into it. Akia Eggleston was last seen on May 3rd, 2017, after going into a bank to make a withdrawal. Akia was 8 months pregnant at the time and was placed on bed rest because she had a high-risk pregnancy. So she couldn't walk as much, she couldn't drive, or barely get around. She depended on friends and her family members to help her get to where she needed to be. Akia was already a mother to a 2-year-old before her disappearance. She fought through depression early on in her pregnancy, but nevertheless, Akia was excited about having another child, a boy named Anubis. Akia planned a baby shower for May 7th, 2017, and sent out invitations to friends and family. Michael was the father of Akia's unborn son. He was a family friend that some didn't really care for, but he and Akia started a relationship. He tried to come off as a doting baby father and pledged to find a place for him and Akia to move in together. He messaged her a blurry picture of an apartment, and he claimed that it was in Federal Hill and asked her to withdraw cash to put down on the deposit. I believe the amount was $572. Now, Akia and Michael were supposed to go visit said apartment on May 3rd, 2017, but they never made it to see the apartment. As a matter of fact, investigators found out the photos were from a listing to an apartment in a different neighborhood, and the real estate agent of that property told detectives he actually never spoke to Michael Robertson. And the deposit for that apartment was way more than the $572 that Michael told Akia to withdraw. Now, Michael Robertson himself wasn't steadily employed. He worked odd jobs here and there and did things like donate plasma and sold rap beats to make money. He also didn't have a stable living situation and would stay on friends' couches from time to time or shack up with his other kids' mother. At around the time he and Akia was expecting their child, Michael had already had 7 children with 4 different women. Around that time, another woman had recently given birth to her 2nd child with Michael, and he maintained a relationship with that woman while Akia was pregnant. As I mentioned earlier, records show that Michael and Akia did not make it to see the apartment on May 3rd, 2017. What ended up happening, according to cell phone records, is that Michael and Akia ended up in the area of Akia's Cherry Hill apartment where she lived at the time of her disappearance. After that, no one ever heard from Akia or saw her again. Akia's relatives reported her missing to police when neither her or Michael showed up to her baby shower scheduled for May 7, 2017. The search for Akia began in Cherry Hill and went to the waterfront and all over Baltimore City. Akia's disappearance garnered national attention and was featured on numerous platforms, true crime podcasts, YouTube channels, everything. I remember when I first heard about the story, I was actually coming home carpooling with one of my past coworkers, and we would watch, true crime shows together on our way home from work. And I heard about the story, and it was absolutely heartbroken. No one knew what happened to Akia. A lot of people suspected that the child's father had something to do with it because of the amount of circumstantial evidence that was piling up against him. One piece of evidence that was really compelling was a Google search that took place on Michael's device, where he was looking up the trash route for the dumpster near Akia's apartment, which they found out led to a landfill in Northern Virginia. So with that information, detectives and engineers took a team out there to start the process of digging through all of the trash and the rubble to find Akia. Unfortunately, it was against regulations for them to dig further than 4 feet down, and the trash at the landfill could be as deep as 40 feet. So they barely scratched the surface. So unfortunately, there was no luck in locating Akia or her remains in that landfill. So to this day, they have not been able to find Akia's body. Michael Robertson was convicted solely on circumstantial evidence. They didn't even have fingerprints or DNA. It was all a timeline leading up to Akia's disappearance that showed a series of events that was able to convince the jury that Michael Robertson was the one responsible for taking the life of Akia Eggleston and their unborn son. It only took the jury about 2 hours to deliberate before coming back with the guilty verdict. Michael Robertson is scheduled to be sentenced in October 2023. He faces up to 2 life sentences. I send my deepest condolences to Akia's family and loved ones. I know that this verdict gave them some sort of closure, but they won't get the closure that they need not being able to have her with them to give her a proper burial or memorial service. May Akia and her beloved son Anubis rest in peace. Fam, tell me your thoughts on this one in the comments below. All right, fam, that's it for this episode of The Baltimore Way. Thank you all so much for watching and making it until the end. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. This is your girl, Mrs. Tony 2 Times, and I'm out.
What's going on, YouTube fam? This your boy Tony 2 Times, and we back with another episode of The Baltimore Way, man. Before I start, be sure to tap that like button. Definitely watch this video to the end to hear the full story and all the details in the case. For all the day one fam, y'all already know it's all love. Thanks for tuning back into another episode. If you're new to the channel and you feeling the content, feel free to subscribe. Definitely hit that notification bell so you can be notified every time we drop a new video. Let's get right into the story. Street life. I'm gonna start this video off with a question. Of course, y'all don't got an answer, but if you are or wherever outside living like that, think real hard. What was it or what is your real reason for choosing that life over a million other legit positive things you could be doing? Is it poverty, the environment you came from, lack of opportunities, not wanting to seem like a goofy or clown? I know for me, it was feeling like my mother's and great-grandmother SSI check wasn't enough to live off as far as needs. So I felt like I needed to help out. In retrospect, it probably was for other reasons as well, like dropping out of school and having a daughter on the way at just 16. It sounds crazy, but thank the Most High, I got sent to prison at 17. It slowed me down, and I know for a fact, saved my life. But some people live off that same energy they had as a hopper to make them jump off the porch and take it with them all the way into adulthood. Until one day, you look up, you are now 30 years old and don't even realize what you are in the streets for. That is, if you are lucky enough to be here and not in the ground or prison. But that's a dangerous game with a lot of twists and turns that can end bad. And on this episode of the Baltimore Way, we will be discussing the case of a duo who was convicted of 3 hits in a short span in the spring of 2017. According to sources, on May 24th, 2017, Baltimore County Police got a call to Liberty Road, close to Liberty Place, at 6 o'clock p.m. of a person laying on the sidewalk, not moving at all. As they got to the location, they noticed there was a man suffering from a gunshot wound to the upper body. Unfortunately, it was too late and he was pronounced gone on the scene. The man was later identified as 24-year-old Kyle Javon Fulton. At the time of the incident, there wasn't any leads to the hit. No one knew what happened or saw anything. So the case sat still for a minute. Less than 1 month later, a 27-year-old barber and Puerto Rico native, Angel Luis Mendez Crespo, and his homie, 30-year-old Edgardo Castro Estramera, were staying together at a home in the 3600 block of Washington Avenue in Windsor Mill. Both men worked at the New York Dominican Salon in the area. On a Friday night, on June 16th, allegedly the 2 men were with their lady friends and wanted to have a good time. They rented a room at the Motel 6 in the 1600 block of Whitehead Court in Woodlawn. That day, Angel was in contact with a man named Derek Simmons about copping some party favors to have fun with. But unfortunately, things would go left. About 1:30 a.m., a guest at the motel reported to staff about hearing commotion and a loud noise that sounded like gunshots, but no one paid it any mind. The next morning, Edgardo and Angel were supposed to check out, but missed the checkout time. That's when a housekeeper entered the room to see what was going on. Opening the door, she immediately called police as she saw the 2 men laid out. As Baltimore County Police arrived on the scene, they noticed Edgardo laying right in the doorway and Angel in between 2 beds in the room. Both men seemed to be suffering from multiple gunshot wounds and unfortunately were pronounced gone at the scene. No one saw anything. The only evidence was Angel's cell phone and the number he had been contacting all day. Before contact quickly ended about 1 o'clock a.m. Police got a warrant to search the phone records, but Angel's carrier did not retain any content or any messages or calls. Detectives' next steps were pulling up the number the man kept contacting and getting a warrant to pull those records as well, in which they did, finding text messages involving Angel and another person. He was stating he had bars to sell or Zans, but he wanted perks and grads for the night. The person agreed to meet him at the motel and text about 1:22 a.m. they were pulling up. Police also got the motel surveillance footage that showed a gold Mercury Grand Marquis pulling up in the motel a little after 1 a.m. and left around 1:30 a.m. right after the guests complained about loud pops. Baltimore County Police knew the car because it was also allegedly caught on surveillance on the day and time Kyle was hit almost a month earlier. And it was 2 people of interest, Derek Simmons and Terica Evans. The text messages from the phone to Angel came from Derek's phone. County police put out warrants on the duo on first-degree hit charges, and in the early morning of June 21st, 2017, police saw the car parked outside of Derek's house. They waited, and about 6 a.m., Derek and Terica walked to the whip, only to be jumped out on by police. Both attempted to get low and flee. Derek ran through a nearby apartment complex but was cut off by a police car and surrendered. He had the cell phone, on them with the same number that was contacting Angel and the keys to the car. Terica ran in the opposite direction. Allegedly, she attempted to up a blick before tripping down the hill and dropping the gun in a storm drain. In her possession was a few perks, grass, some girl, and a phone. The car was searched, finding ammunition. As the two were taken into custody, police retrieved the gun from the drain. Also searched both their homes, in which they allegedly found the .32 in Derek's room. As the autopsy came back from Angel and Edgardo's body, the bullet fragments were linked back to the blick found in Derek's room. As the two were in custody, county police used cell phone records and surveillance, linking them to the previous hit on Kyle as well. Now the two face 3 murder charges. As they made the trial, surveillance footage and text messages were shown to jurors, and eventually Terica and Derek were found guilty and sentenced to life in prison on first-degree hit, robbery, and handgun charges. Rest in peace to Kyle, Angel, and Edgardo. I send my deepest prayers and condolences to the families. I'm not sure what the motive was for Kyle. As far as the double hit at the motel, they tried to say it was a deal that went bad, turned into a robbery. Either way, people lost their lives, over $20 worth of grass, a few grams, perks, and balls. More of this story, I don't condone it at all. But if you feel like you gotta be in the streets, make it make sense. If you are 25 and over, make an escape plan. Nothing lasts forever. You forget your purpose for doing it. Now you just out here, moving reckless, looking for any opportunity, big or small. I know cause I've been there, risking your life and freedom for crumbs, when you probably can make the same bread working, selling t-shirts, or doing something else. Eventually, it ends in the ground or in the cell. But hey, that's the Baltimore way. Man, crazy story. Rest in peace to all 3 people. I ain't gonna talk y'all head off on this one. I don't really know the purpose for the situation. It sounded like they was just out here trying to make moves, trying to get any bread they could, trying to get any product they could. It's a lot of people out here moving like that. You know, the sad thing about it, if something like this do happen, something go wrong, you up that blick on somebody, they try to fight back, you got to do what you got to do, whatever. Now you're in a situation, you facing a life sentence. Over what? People got to ask themselves that, man. But y'all already know this is another episode of the Baltimore Way. I definitely appreciate y'all if you made it to the end. Leave it in the comments. Remember, be respectful. Y'all already know it's all love, fam. This your boy Tony 2 times. I'm out. What is going on, YouTube, fam? This your boy Tony 2 times, and we back with another episode of the Baltimore Way, man. Before I start, be sure to tap that like button. Definitely watch this video to the end to hear the full story and all the details in the case. For all the day one fam, welcome back. Thanks for tuning in to another episode. If you're new to the channel and you feeling the content, feel free to subscribe. Definitely hit that notification bell so you can be notified every time we drop a new video. Let's get right into the story. Funerals are already a sad occasion, with everyone's emotions on high, grieving the loved one who was lost. It's a place of mourning to say our last goodbyes before our family or friend is laid to their final resting place. It takes a toll on the family, financially, mentally, emotionally, sometimes even physically and spiritually. I remember having to bury my mother when I was 16 in Lansdowne at Mount Zion Cemetery. My great-grandmother is also buried there. I lost a big piece of me that day that changed me forever. It really hit when they lowered her body into the ground. That's a pain and hurt that I figured out a long time ago, only I could try to heal from and deal with. It was no one else's responsibility to make me feel better. I literally lost it after that situation. My daughter was born a few months later, but I was doing so much stupid stuff in the streets to think it was helping with my pain and I was making a name for myself until at 17, I was facing 40 years and went to prison. Months after losing my mother and my daughter only being 3 months old. But nowadays, things have changed. If it's street beef or even family beef, funerals can go left real quick to people bringing blicks, up and on family members, and sometimes enemies of the deceased or remaining family members pull up and make a move. Because now they don't have to look for a target. They know exactly where you will be at, the time and place. That's a messed up way to think about it, but it's really happening all over the world. Funerals are getting shot up. And on this episode of the Baltimore Way, we will discuss a situation of a family losing two brothers, not even 30 days apart, and the oldest being hit while laying his little brother to rest at the funeral. According to sources, back on August 25th, 2018, an 18-year-old man named Marcus Brown unfortunately lost his life in the streets of Baltimore. About 8 o'clock p.m. on a Saturday night, BPD was called to the 1400 block of North Mount Street to shots fired, right next to Gilmore Homes Projects. The young man, unfortunately, would not survive his injuries and was identified as 18-year-old Marcus. Somebody who saw the whole situation unfolded speculated the young man had some kind of beef with somebody in the projects and that he was from Emerson Village. The witness also said they felt like somebody set Marcus up and bore him around there to be hit on a corner before they heard gunshots and saw the young man fall. After the situation, the family had to come together to lay the young man to rest. A couple weeks later, on September 12th, 2018, that day would come. Everyone, family and friends, came together, including Marcus's big brother, 32-year-old Maurice Brown Jr. The family would gather at Perkins Square Baptist Church in West Baltimore for a celebration of life for Marcus. Other than people mourning the loss of the young man, everything was calm. Maurice was said to want to be with his little brother before he was laid to his final resting place. After leaving the church, the family headed to the burial site in Lansdowne at Mount Zion Cemetery. Everything was peaceful and going as planned. Marcus was about to be laid to rest when his final words and goodbyes would be spoken. Allegedly, some vehicles pulled up with men inside. Marcus' casket was still above ground when people started walking away towards another part of the cemetery. Commotion would start before men would start arguing, and eventually shots went off and everyone started to flee the scene, running towards Lansdowne High School before someone called Baltimore County Police to report multiple shots going off from different caliber guns. Baltimore County Police responded to 3900 Highlands Ferry Road just before 12:45 p.m. to find two men shot, allegedly in the chest. One man was pronounced gone on the scene. Another was rushed to the University of Maryland Shock Trauma Center. Witnesses still at the burial site told Baltimore County Police some cars pulled up to the cemetery before words got exchanged and guns came out. One of the men hit was identified as Marcus's brother, 32-year-old Maurice Brown Jr. The other victim was identified as 25-year-old Montrell Johnson. While on the scene, Marcus and Maurice's mother was also rushed to a local hospital due to chest pains from the situation, and Lansdowne High School was put on lockdown due to the shooting too close to the school and people allegedly running towards school grounds as the shots went off. A local car repair shop in the area told police they caught the whole incident on surveillance camera. When looking at the footage, everything seemed normal at first until two groups could be seen walking away by a tree before Blitz came out and shots were exchanged. It would unfortunately be relayed to the family that Maurice did not survive his injuries, and the other victim would unfortunately pass away also. The family was heartbroken to lose two sons not even 30 days apart. Police first alleged the shooting was an attack on someone there or retaliation, but it was all speculation, even on who fired the first shot. A GoFundMe was made to lay Maurice to rest. It went from the man trying to bury his little brother to him too losing his life, not far from Marcus' casket. With his father stating, "I don't even get to bury my son," shaken up about the whole situation. That's all he had to say at the time. It's unclear to me if Montrell was a family friend or not. And on this story, I'm going to leave it right there. Just with the details of the case, I won't speculate at all because I'm not here for all that. I would definitely like to send my prayers and condolences to all families involved who lost someone in this situation. It's crazy you can't even lay a loved one to rest peacefully without a situation like this happening. Hopefully the family can heal from losing 2 sons back to back. I know that's a different kind of pain. I'm going to leave the moral of the story up to y'all on this one. Leave it in the comments, but definitely be respectful. Yeah, man, I ain't going to say too much more about this one. So basically, 2 brothers lost their life a few weeks apart. You know what I mean? It's a lot of details. It's a lot of speculation on the case. But from what I was saying, from what I was reading, ain't nobody really had too much to say. You know what I mean? Police don't really know, so I'm going to leave it there. But y'all leave it in the comments. Rest in peace to all 3 of them young men that lost their life. You know, Marcus, Maurice, and Montreal. I send my prayers and condolences to all families. But y'all already know this is another episode of the Baltimore Way. I appreciate you if you made it to the end. This your boy Tony 2 times. Love, fam. I'm out.
What's up, YouTube fam? It's your girl, Mrs. Tony 2 times, and I'm back with another video. In this episode of the Baltimore Way, we will be discussing the case of a young woman who made a rash decision that landed her in prison and claimed the life of another young lady and a young child. Before we get into this video, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here. Go ahead and click that notification bell to get notified every time we upload. If you're rocking with the content, smash that like button. Feel free to share this video with everyone you know. Make sure you watch until the end to hear the full story. Alright, let's get right into it. There are times in everyone's life where we make bad decisions that usually come with life-changing consequences. Some of us were able to dodge certain bullets, but for some of us, our emotions, especially anger, can get the best of us. Anger that turns into uncontrollable rage can be deadly. On Tuesday, May 27, 2014, just after 9 p.m., in the 1900 block of West Franklin Street in Baltimore, police say a woman steered a vehicle onto the sidewalk alongside a church, hitting 3 people, slaying 2 of them after an argument witnesses say she had with one of the deceased victims, 25-year-old Latoya Skipwith. The other deceased victim was just a 2-year-old little boy, Joshua Carter Jr., Latoya's cousin. The last victim was a 7-year-old girl who sustained non-life-threatening injuries. According to news reports, people on West Franklin Street said they had seen the woman confront Latoya about a man they both knew. Bystanders at the scene told 11 News that the victims ended up in a nearby concrete stairwell. Pictures taken before the crash showed the stairwell surrounded by a metal grate. Only a portion remained after the horrific incident. A pole holding a roof over the stairwell was bent at a 90-degree angle, with the roof sagging. Family members of the victims and community members told reporters that the scene was horrible and frightening. Sadly, 2-year-old Joshua's mother said she watched helplessly as her only child was slain. His father was nearby and rushed to the scene after hearing the shocking and heartbreaking news. They described the 2-year-old as a bright child who knew everyone's name on the block. Family members of both Joshua and Latoya lamented that he had not yet had the opportunity to live his life, and Latoya's had a bright future ahead of her. They described Latoya as a hard worker who loved her family. Relatives and neighbors struggled to come to grips with their losses. Investigators classified the slayings as homicides. The following day, detectives arrested and charged 28-year-old Lucretia Mintz with 2 counts of first-degree murder for the deaths of Joshua Carter Jr. and LaToya Skipwith. She also faced 1 count of attempted murder in regards to the 7-year-old girl who was struck but survived the ordeal. Prior to her arrest, officials said an officer had located her banged-up gray Acura near the Poe Homes housing project. Lucretia was held without bond. As Lucretia Mintz was arrested and charged for the incident, she was also charged earlier that month for allegedly stomping and kicking a young girl. According to news reports, charging documents state that after a dispute with a 12-year-old girl and Lucretia's daughter, along with her 2 nieces, a car pulled up and Lucretia, her daughter, and 2 other women jumped out and started to attack the young girl. Police said the blows Lucretia landed on the girl were serious, causing bruising and swelling to her face, according to court documents. Lucretia was taken into custody a few days later, but posted bail the same day and was released. Those charges remained pending while she awaited trial for the incident that took place on Franklin Street. 2 years later, in April 2016, Lucretia Mintz went to trial for the deadly incident. Instead of a jury trial, Lucretia opted for a bench trial that lasted 2 days. During the trial, the investigation revealed Lucretia had driven over to the home of her ex-boyfriend to confront him after the two had an argument online. Once at the house, Lucretia and her ex-boyfriend's new girlfriend, LaToya Skipwith, got into a heated argument. Court documents went on to reveal that Lucretia left the house and drove around the block. When she returned, she revved up the car and drove up onto the sidewalk. LaToya and the 2 children, 2-year-old Joshua and the 7-year-old girl, were sitting on the steps of the church. LaToya grabbed the children and tried to get away, but it was too late. Lucretia allegedly struck all 3 before she fled the scene. Court records went on to say that the day after the incident, Lucretia called Baltimore police, claiming she had an accident the night before where she hit a pole. She told detectives she wanted to come in and explain what happened. Once she was at the station, she told investigators the transmission in her car failed as she tried to drive away. A later examination of Lucretia's car showed there were no mechanical issues with the vehicle. During her trial, Lucretia testified that she was trying to escape an attack and she didn't mean to run anyone down. On the stand, she said, "All I was focused on was getting my kids out of harm's way." Her defense attorney described the scene as chaotic and that his client's 11-year-old child was struck in her face, according to testimony. He proclaimed that his client found herself in a hornet's nest and they were swarming the car. Lucretia's attorney also testified that she had struck a pole and the steps of a home before she hit the victims with the car. He claimed that the car was not fully in her control at the time. He said in court that Lucretia's intent was not to take someone's life. However, prosecutors painted a different picture of what happened that night. According to court records, the state read Facebook messages Lucretia had sent her ex-boyfriend a day earlier. Prosecutors reiterated that Lucretia deliberately aimed her car at the sidewalk where people were standing. Prosecutors said she had a clear path to leave the scene of the argument, but she did not, explaining how witnesses said she drove away, then turned around and charged down the street. Prosecutors also said she had emerged from her vehicle at one point during the altercation with a knife. Prosecutors alleged that she told detectives that the knife was her weapon of choice. They alleged she also kept a stun gun and pepper spray in her vehicle. In the courtroom, prosecutors asked rhetorically, "Who has a weapon of choice?" After hearing both sides, the judge presiding over the trial handed down a verdict of guilty. Lucretia Mintz was found guilty of first and second-degree murder. According to news reports, relatives left the courtroom saying, "Thank you, God," and "Justice, justice, justice." Lucretia Mintz faced up to life plus 55 years in prison. Her sentencing was scheduled for the following month. In June 2016, a judge sentenced Lucretia to life plus 20 years in prison. According to news reports, family members were relieved with the sentence Lucretia received, but they were still struggling every day to deal with their grief. They believed the sentence was justice, but the family wasn't celebrating. They still didn't have their beloved LaToya and their beloved Joshua Carter Jr. The victim's family believed the crime was premeditated. The family told news reporters that so many lives were affected by that one decision that Lucretia Mintz made. LaToya was a mother of 2 young children that loved her dearly. According to family members, LaToya's children were very young when she was taken from them in such a senseless way. In 2017, Lucretia Mintz did appeal her conviction, according to reports. In the appeal, she and her attorneys hope for her charge to be reduced to voluntary manslaughter. Court records reveal that they argued that the crime was not premeditated, but she acted in the moment. However, her appeal was denied and her conviction was upheld. Fam, this is such a sad, unbelievably senseless and tragic story. May LaToya Skipwith and Joshua Carter Jr. rest in peace. My deepest and most heartfelt condolences to their families and loved ones. LaToya was described as a highly motivated young woman who was about to start a new job before she was taken. She was a mother who was loved dearly. Joshua Carter Jr. was an innocent child who did not deserve for his life to be taken in such a horrific way. He literally was just starting his life. And the 7-year-old who was also struck now has to live with this traumatic experience for the rest of her life. I pray that she is coping well and living a healthy and productive life. I can't imagine the healing that has to take place for all that were involved in this tragedy. One bad decision, a fit of anger that turned into rage, caused so many broken hearts. Even Lucretia's children suffer from this tragedy. Their mother is spending the rest of their lives behind bars. I truly prayed for all those affected in this situation. Their lives have been changed forever because of one bad choice. Lucretia had a choice to walk away. Shoot, she had a choice to not show up to the home with her children in the car. She had a choice to simply move on with her life. We all have choices, and choices have consequences, good and bad. Let this be a reminder to make your choices wisely. The consequences to your choices do not only affect you, but can also affect those around you. All right, fam, tell me what you think about this story down in the comments. Please feel free to send condolences, prayers, or encouraging words to the families affected by this tragedy. Spread a little love in this cold world. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give us a thumbs up if you're rocking with the content. Thank you so much for watching. This is Mrs. Tony 2 Times, and I'm out.